What's up, Willowbrook? Today we are in John chapter 13. In verse 3, it says, Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So Jesus knew his time on earth was about to end, and he also knew that God had put all things under his power. What would we do with all that power? I mean, can you imagine what people would do if they knew God had put all things under their power? Would people go on really long vacations or get really nice houses, or maybe make their physique look the way they've always wanted it to? Well, we see in this chapter not what people would do, but we see what Jesus did, knowing that God had given him all that power. And it's pretty amazing. In verse 5, it says, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. So Jesus had all things under his power, and he chose to take on the role of a servant. He washed the disciples' feet. He washed the feet of one man who would betray him. He washed the feet of another man who would deny him 3 times. Jesus had all the power in the world, and he chose to serve. You know, culture today tells us that we're supposed to climb the ladder, right? Gain more power, more wealth, more prestige, more honor. But Jesus shows us that in God's kingdom, it's upside down, right? Those with the greatest honor are the greatest servants. Then he goes on in verse 12, and he asks the disciples, and I think we need to ask ourselves today, do you understand what I have done for you? But he doesn't stop there. He continues. He says, now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. See, first he asked, do you understand? Do we understand that he's showing us this pattern, this example that we should be serving one another? But then he calls the disciples to action. He calls us to action. Recently, a friend of mine officiated a wedding, and before the wedding ceremony started, there was a woman that started to choke on some food she was eating, and there were people standing around her, and they understood what was happening. They saw that she was choking, and they were yelling, she's choking, but they just stood there. They understood, but they didn't act. That is until the groom saw what was happening, and he works in the medical field, and he ran over there and gave her the Heimlich maneuver and saved her life. See, oftentimes when it comes to the words of Jesus, I feel like those people gathered around the woman that's choking. I understand what's happening. I understand what's being said, but maybe I don't act on it. Maybe you feel the same way. Well, today I feel like Jesus is calling us. He's inviting us to join him in serving one another. Read verse 17 with me. He says, now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. So let's do this. Let's actually follow the words and the example of Jesus. Let's not just be hearers of the word, but let's be doers of the word. Let's serve one another. Let's serve our communities willingly, joyfully. And when we do, we will be blessed. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time.